The first time Leora made her bed aboard the Eclipsera, she hadn't noticed the audience. She'd been too focused on smoothing the regulation gray sheets, tucking the corners with the precise hospital fold her grandmother had taught her decades ago on Earth. It was a small ritual, a fragment of humanity carried across light years of cold void. But Kale had noticed. The Thryn warrior stood nearly 8 feet tall. His scaled hide was the color of dried blood, his eyes like molten copper. He was the pride of his clan, a decorated predator from a species that had conquered 17 star systems before humanity had even achieved faster-than-light travel. The Thryn didn't make beds. They didn't need comfort. They took what they wanted and slept where they fell. Yet there he stood in the doorway of the human quarters, massive head tilted, watching Leora's small hands work the fabric with inexplicable precision. "What are you doing?" Kale's voice rumbled like distant thunder, his translator struggling with the concept. Leora jumped, nearly dropping her pillow. "Making my bed," she said, as if it were the most obvious thing in the universe. "Why?" She blinked up at him. This creature who could tear a bulkhead door from its hinges, who had personally slain a hive queen in single combat. "Because I sleep in it, and it's nicer when it's neat." Kale's pupils contracted, his head tilted the other way. The concept seemed to physically pain him, but he didn't leave. 3 days later, Leora found Kale standing beside his sleeping platform, a simple slab the craft used aboard their vessels. He'd somehow acquired human bedding. The sheets lay in a crumpled heap on the platform, one corner vaguely tucked, the rest a disaster. "I attempted the ritual," Kale admitted, his voice carrying an edge of frustration that might have preceded violence in another context. Leora bit her lip to keep from smiling. "Would you like me to show you?" What followed was perhaps the strangest tutorial in human history. Leora demonstrated each step slowly, explaining the logic behind hospital corners, the importance of pulling the fabric taut, the aesthetic satisfaction of a properly fluffed pillow. Kale watched with the intensity he usually reserved for weapons demonstrations, his clawed hands hovering uncertainly over the delicate fabric. When he finally managed a passable bed, wrinkled and slightly lopsided but recognizably made, something shifted in his copper eyes. Pride, perhaps, or the birth of something humanity had weaponized since the dawn of civilization: competition. Word spread through the Thryn contingent like wildfire through oxygen. Within a week, 7 Thryn warriors had casually observed Leora's morning routine. Within 2 weeks, the human quarters corridor had become a bizarre thoroughfare of predators, watching a single woman make her bed with the focus scholars might apply to ancient texts. Then came the competitions. It started innocently enough. Kale mentioned to his nest brother Darren that he could now make his bed in under 4 minutes. Darren, who had served in the Voreth campaign, took this as a challenge to his honor. The next morning, Leora emerged from her quarters to find 2 craft warriors standing rigidly beside their respective sleeping platforms. Sheets held ready, staring at each other with lethal intensity. "Human Leora," Kale said formally, never breaking eye contact with Darren. "You want me to judge a bed-making competition?" Yes, she shouldn't have agreed. She definitely shouldn't have laughed. But the sight of 2 apex predators, creatures who had terrorized a dozen species across the galaxy, waiting with barely contained aggression to tuck in sheets, was simply too much. "All right," Leora said, pulling out her data pad. "On my mark, 3, 2, 1. What happened next would become legend. Aboard the Eclipsera, Darren attacked his bed with the same ferocity he'd once brought to planetary invasions. Sheets snapped through the air like whips, but speed without technique meant nothing. His corners came untucked almost immediately. Kale, meanwhile, worked with deliberate precision, each fold a calculated movement. His massive hands, designed to crush and tear, moved with surprising delicacy across the fabric. Hospital corners locked into place. The pillow received 3 careful adjustment taps. Kale wins, Leora announced. 3 minutes, 47 seconds. But Darren, your tucking speed on the long side was actually faster. You just need to. She didn't get to finish. 6 more Thryn warriors materialized from various corridors, all demanding instruction, all insisting they could beat Kale's time. By the end of the month, the phenomenon had spread to 3 other craft vessels in the fleet. Commanders reported decreased aggression incidents, increased attention to personal quarters maintenance, and a bizarre but statistically significant improvement in fine motor skills among their warriors. The humans found it hilarious. The Thryn found it essential. Leora found herself giving daily lessons, creating charts of personal bests, adjudicating disputes over corner technique. She had inadvertently become the most influential human in Thryn culture since first contact. "I don't understand," she told Kale one evening, watching as a line of warriors waited outside the training room she'd been assigned. "You're apex predators, conquerors. Why does this matter so much to you?" Kale considered this, his claws carefully smoothing a wrinkle from his now impeccable bedding. "We Thryn are warriors. We understand hierarchy, strength, victory. But you humans," he gestured to the perfectly made bed, "you find honor in small things, precision without combat, excellence without bloodshed. You make order from chaos simply because it is better." He met her eyes, and for the first time, Leora saw not a predator but a student, earnest and slightly awed. "You taught us that strength can be gentle, that discipline can be domestic, that pride can be found in tucking corners no one else will see." Kale's expression shifted into what might have been a smile on a human face. "Besides, Darren still claims he can beat my time. He's wrong, but the attempt brings him joy." From the corridor came sounds of aggressive sheet snapping and a triumphant roar. 3 minutes 45 seconds, someone bellowed. Kale's eyes narrowed. Impossible. His left corner always fails. He was gone before Leora could respond, moving with predatory speed toward the training room, determined to defend his title. Leora smiled and turned back to her own quarters. Tomorrow, she'd teach them about properly folding fitted sheets.